Right. Overall, if we're going to do a tier list of these cinematics.
Which cinematics?
WoW cinematics. I think that Warlords of Draenor is at the S+. I don't know if this is also S+, but for me, this, yeah, so I don't think it's as good as that one. For me, however, it's like the second favorite. And, you know, it's here's the thing. Everything gets points in different ways. So, yes, this does not have the just sheer, what the fuck, this is incredible power of, you know, of Warlords of Draenor. Or the, like, oh boy, it's the Frosty Man of Lich King. Because that's how you felt, that's how you take it, like, ooh, the Frosty Boy. I think, though, that this, the vocal performance, the actual, you know, the actual performance that the animators were able to, you know, to achieve, I think, like, the emotional weight of it, the writing, the script, you know, for me, this is absolutely up at the top, or at least, you know, near the top, in and around the top. Compare this to Dragonflight, and Dragonflight was just like a whole load of nothing. It was like, ooh, woo, we're back to the islands. Wow, look, it's Stony Tony. If he didn't turn that beacon on, none of this shit would have went bad. Whereas this is like, I mean, it's just like incredible character scene. And, you know, some people are like, they may need the big battle action scene. And usually I would be like that for an expansion announcement. But for me, I honestly got that same level of thrill out of the performance.
Right, yeah. So that's where there's a couple things. I think before we actually go through it, I'll just address them, because I think everyone's seen it, everyone's watched it, everyone has their opinions on it, obviously.
Yeah. Also watched the 4K version on a large OLED. And you're like, why am I only able to watch this in YouTube 4K? I want, why, like Blizzard, just give me the 50 gig, give me the ProRes, bro. Just give me, like, here's a 300 gigabyte raw file of our cinematic at lossless quality.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I just want to zoom in each individual beard hair just to see how good are those textures.
That is too expensive these days, unfortunately.
Yes.
I was about to literally go off on the most unbelievable, unrelated tangent about the internet and AI and data, so I'm just going to put the flag down and say I did not do that today. Please be proud of me. A couple different things about this, right? Anduin's a pussy. That's one concern that people have. See, there's no. Let me list them. Let me list them.
Sorry, just you can understand how you're like.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm listing them, so we don't get it off. And problem number one that I've seen people posit is Anduin's the crying pussy boy. That's a concern. There's another one, which is, where's the action? And there's the other, which is this it? So, is this it? No. Metzen very specifically tempered expectations by, you know, talking about how, you know, there's going to be big action, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes to, like, sell an idea, to lead things, you have to have the quiet, emotional, contemplative bit. So that's clearly what happened first, right?
Point two valid. Point one, go acquire emotional intelligence, please.
Yeah, so point two on the action-y bit is the case of, yes, but action without context is kind of pointless. And they're doing the right job to establish the context for any action that they do bring.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because you can't have it doesn't hype people up. This doesn't hype people up, but it does get them emotionally invested.
Get you to care.
If they're there. That's the theory anyway. And obviously with point one about Anduin being sad, there's some people who don't get it. But we'll talk about that.
I'm going to bring in a Marvel very quickly. Robert Downey Jr., you know, really exquisite actor, actually, when he's bringing his A game. Sorry, you've seen Oppenheimer? Holy shit. Started off with that, you know, the Iron Man movie. And not all the Iron Man movies were great. Hello, Iron Man 2. But there were bits like the whole New York thing. Tony Stark has the large trauma after the New York thing in the Avengers. And for a lot of people, that ends up being that little root heart thing, you know, of that franchise that they really cared about. So to have that happen, you needed the big moments where, like, hello, actor man. Now, rather than be a popular thing, you need to act. And by doing that, people give a shit. I think this is a little bit like that.
There is another point people are bringing up, which is that that this legitimizes stuff that people didn't like about Shadowlands, and that the context of Anduin here doesn't feel earned, which we'll also talk about because that's very important, I think, going forward. So to talk about the lack of action, it didn't have any action because they're going to contextualize the actual setup first, and we can't have action without the context of who we're fighting, which I'm sure we'll learn towards the end of, I was about to say the end of Shadowlands. No, we won't, because that was a long time ago. We'll learn towards the end of, Dragonflight, because we have, as was revealed today in the Q&A, there are 3 more updates coming to Dragonflight. So I'm assuming a 2.5, 2.7, and 2.9. I'm assuming. We expect a 2.5, 2.7. Probably 0.9 is probably a tiny one, but yes. So.
Oh my! No. Do you know what that actually does?
Changes everything.
And more.
Yeah.
It does. It pretty much means they can, with pre-patch, keep a patch every 8 weeks. Yeah, I suppose that's like the thing. Anyway.
Yeah. So now let's talk about Anduin being a little sad pussy boy. I can sort of get that based on some of what you've seen of him so far, right? Because him having a wee tear in the BFA cinematic, I thought it was a nice touch, but it was very, look, he's a sensitive soft boy. And that's okay, right? I think that's fine. It's different from Thrall. It's different from Grom. It's different from Garrosh. And it was clearly, the setup of Anduin versus Sylvanas, and Anduin's the caring leader, and Sylvanas is the one who's going to like fight and stuff like that. So then he had before that he had a wee cry over his dad, which is fair, honestly. I'm gonna give him that.
It's really funny, dude.
Yeah. Then the problem is, and this is kind of, we're going to talk about the Shadowlands part as well to lead this through. So Shadowlands had the problem with Anduin becoming the depressed PTSD drama boy. Trauma boy, it's not drama boy, trauma boy. There's two very different things. Those are completely, that wasn't sold super well, because it was kind of an homage to Arthas that they didn't put in to the game. They just kind of pretended it was there. They had this philosophical set of discussions between Anduin and Sylvanas over choice and free will and respect and all these different things. And then suddenly Anduin's mind controlled. And that wasn't sold very well at all in terms of what it meant for him.
Our interaction with the A-plot was just to get bits to connect, but the actual, so much happened off screen. Yeah,
so you're sat there going, wait, people literally don't understand that Anduin, why Anduin would be upset by that. It was, okay, well, yeah, exactly, Snazzy. It was bad, but they tried to have a point. And that's the thing. They failed to have that point, which is where this, issue comes from. You can kind of go, okay, well, what did they try to do? They tried to give Anduin this really hard choice to make. They tried to put parallels to Arthas in, but they had to force it through by mind controlling him, by dominating him, because they didn't have the budget or the time or the way to write where, Anduin actually, sided with Sylvanas for a second or whatever like that. We didn't get to see the choice that he made because he didn't make a choice as far as we're concerned. Mm-hmm. That choice was forced upon him. And that's the thing that they've actually done, right? I think that's what they've tried to do with especially this cinematic, because what happened to Anduin in Shadowlands? He was sat there going, well, I disagree with you, Sylvanas. You will not break me. I will not be able to, And that was the thing they were setting up with Kingsmorn. It was Sylvanas has a chance to convince him to join her side, but the jailer's sitting there going, well, if he doesn't choose, I can always make him.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him different to Arthas, because he didn't make that choice. Arthas at Stratholme was like, I'm burning this place to the ground and there ain't shit nobody can do to stop me, because it's the right thing to do. He took the first step of turning from light to dark. He took that step willingly without Frostmourne. He got Frostmourne later, and he was already so far gone by the time he picked up Frostmourne. And obviously, Giga Chad Arthas, yeah, exactly. He stuck to his principle. He was super solid for it. And that was the problem. If that was him being a great king, he was a great king. He made those choices intentionally, but they ultimately turned out to be the evil choices or the wrong choices in that regard. Anduin is the opposite. He didn't make a choice. He was forced to do things, and he had to suffer through watching them happen with his hand. And there's issues there of like, if you go from the logical plot perspective, you go, well, he didn't do it. It wasn't his choice, but he still did it. He still watched it happen. And that goes completely on top of everything else Anduin's going through rather, with his entire life history of being like alone, all the pressures of the crown. A lot of Shadows Rising is him escaping like the difficulty of the crown, or to reference a song by an Irish writer, The Cost of the Crown. It's actually an excellent song, go listen to it. But it was him struggling with that made him feel like he's so much pressure. Then that happened to him, and he lost that connection to the light. So it's he's had a badass time. It completely makes sense that he is traumatized by that. Like, you look at the comparative, like I guess we could go over the super there saying Varian got a soul split in two and forced to fight in the pit. He didn't stop to cry. He came back to lead. I'll give Anduin a mulligan in mourning his dad, but all he's done is cry. All we've seen him do is cry, and that's the problem, because
so much is in the storytelling.
Because he has had to bear the weight of being the priest turned warrior, because he's not naturally a warrior. He's he's not Logosh. He's the little lion.
I think he also hard enough experience growing up.
Yeah, I mean, his ma was killed. Like, obviously, Varian was upset by Tiffin's name dying. Anduin had that problem too. Like,
yes, so he had that problem. He had pretty messed up time as a kid. When he's like a teenager, he's getting almost killed by Garrosh, very large, dangerous orc.
People forget the Miss Bandari arc he went under, where he actually was kind of a badass for being like 12 or whatever.
That was actually the thing. Anduin, like, properly badassed up in Mob. Mm-hmm. I think it's just, it's the telling. We needed to see Anduin actually doing things more, because if you're going to write that character authentically, right, so you have a good degree of like internal consistency. He has led thousands of people to their deaths, right? Many thousands more on his orders. He's had internal political divisions with, Taronda getting very angry and running away to Darkshore, against his commands. He's probably had, like, I don't want to say imposter syndrome, but he's had a little bit of that, because, like, he also looks at his dad and he's like, he was really cool.
Yeah, the entire point of all of his interactions with his dad in, like, books and stories is that he does not feel like he's capable of living up to that, even though he did do that very well for a lot of points. And even the fact that he was able to, even the fact that Sylvanas and the jailer needed to resort to Kingsborn is a show of just how strong he is.
Yes.
Like, literally, they needed to resort to the nuclear codes for him, because he was not willing to, like, change. He was stronger than Arthas on a principled level, and in that sense.
Even while being covered in the domination runes and with Kingsmorn, which had Arthas' soul in it, he does he drops the compass.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. The compass is basically like, basically everything that he can muster. Where he drops the compass, and then that is how eventually we sort of work things out and, kind of do end up like freeing him. But yeah, that's the compass that is dropped before he walks into the portal at the end of 9-1.
Yeah.
So it's just that I think what people are struggling with is the story that got us to this place, let's be real, was shit. Now, that story as expressed in the novel Sylvanas, a lot better than what we got in game, but ultimately it's a game first, and it was shit. We all agree in this. I think, though, you end up in a tricky position. Do you throw all these characters in a bin, or do you try to continue them? For Anduin, they've been like, well, no, we're going to keep Anduin in the game. They can't not acknowledge what has happened, and it's too much to retcon. So then all you can do is execute your next steps so well that, that people eventually get on board. What we see is everything in this cinematic, and then he ends up seemingly going, down to not Azul Narub and just taking names, as is in the key art.
Yeah, and that's exactly the thing where this is him at the midpoint of his journey. This is him in like the to be as cliche as possible, like it's darkest before the dawn for Anduin here. This is him like brutally traumatized. This is him not believing in himself because he lost the light, which was always what was there for him. He always had that external guide, but now he doesn't, which means what's going to guide him? His own instinct, his own gut, and his friends, of course. But that's the thing where Thrall didn't tell him what to do. Thrall stood there and went, he had whatever's left of Charlemagne sticking into the leather harness on his chest, and Thrall didn't move because he trusted him. And that's the point. I've seen people talk about this in the sense of like, and obviously I'm not in any capacity qualified to talk about this. I'm literally just regurgitating something I saw people talk about in regards to like PTSD. And one of the things best to do for people who are like in severe trauma in the sense of self-doubt and things like that is literally just trust them with and show them like an external, not tell them what to do, not tell them what not to do, but literally go, listen, it's all you and you can do it. Kind of is one of the better things there. So that's the case where they have him down here, which means he goes to Hollowfall and he sees a light crystal and he sees these humans and he sees the Arathi and pretty close to the Arathi himself. Turalyon pretty close to the Arathi, being the last known descendant of the Arathi bloodline being Anduin Lothar, who was the person Turalyon was most loyal to before he went through the portal, before he died, and then they went for the light. And then you look at what happens to the Hollowfall crystal, which is, the light turns off and has a night cycle. What do those humans do without the light? They hide inside. They cower in fear of the dark. What's Anduin doing? Exactly that. Just more internal than external. So how does that... How are they going to tell that story? How are they going to bring like Illyria through that? How are they going to bring Illyria and Turalyon? How are they going to have Moira, who's the balance between light and shadow? How are they going to have that in there with Anduin? What's she going to talk to him about on screen or off screen or in a fucking book? So there's potential for him to go from that to actually, like I think it was Dragonite saying, that you hope he finds his masculinity. Look at him. That's literally the point. The point that we see is he's fucked. He's down. He's in the dumps. He doesn't trust himself.
Like, who sees
he's got a terrible haircut. He's clearly cut his own hair with Charlemagne, and God knows how he didn't decapitate himself. He's doing the Arthas pose, which means Arthas pose cool, but also he's the Arthas that is. He's the other Arthas. He's that gone a different way, and that's everything they tried to set up with him.
He's afraid
as the blonde king.
He is afraid that within him is the capacity to be that guy.
He realizes that.
Yeah.
He sees, I could be.
But the thing is, he'll then realize the point is that you have that capacity. You have great power. Mm-hmm. Do you go in the bad way, or do you go in the good way? Because the power itself is just its potential. It's neutral. So what he has is a lack of faith in who he is in wielding the power that he has. That's why he can no longer summon the light.
And at some point, he'll either get the ability to summon back the light, or, because obviously what's the light? The light doesn't, you don't have favor with the light by doing the right thing. You have, like, by doing the right thing the light wants. You have favor with the light by doing what you believe is right.
Yeah.
So it's like not having the access to the light is just the most brazen analogy or allegory for having self-doubt. So obviously the point will be he'll have that. He'll to like some capacity of introducing the void. Obviously the Hollowfall crystal's there too. Moira's there too. Thrall being here, just going, I do whatever I trust you, dude. It's like everyone's saying that this isn't in the game, or there's a whole load of like different problems with storytelling. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt that they scuffed so much of this so far.
You can't just be like, didn't happen.
Yeah. So what they are doing, and this is why I roughly trust them, is you can kind of read this as they're making the best of what they have and have a plan to go forward.
Yeah, because like they kept on not delivering, not showing. Well, the first, like the step to making that right is to just turn up and start delivering. I feel like this is turning up and starting to deliver.
It's the intention anyway, and I think largely performance-wise and with how it's written, it is really apparent to me that what's going to happen in The War Within is Anduin's going to win The War Within.
Ah! Do you get it?
Anduin's going to win The War Within, and he's going to become his true self.
Oh my god, it's just like the battle for Azeroth.
Yeah.
N'Zoth's going to be inside Anduin all along. I can't wait. I'm sorry.
So, like, that's the thing where, like, you're right that there's a load of problems here. You're right there's a whole load of awful things, but this is the starting point. The story's not done yet. This is them establishing this guy is self-doubt incarnate. He's a king who doesn't feel he can lead. That's it.
Isn't it a horrible idea to show the cinematic when people connected to Shadowlands? Ultimately, they needed, like, strong moment with Thrall, going to be good for actually getting the people you can get back. I think ultimately they were like, no, this is worth that risk. I would be suspicious about anything near there, but I think that in the earnestness and execution of this, I do believe it was worth the risk. Ultimately, you can overcome a hard challenge with a lot of power, and I think this shows up and brings a lot of power.
They did not try to hide it, which inspires confidence in me.
Yeah, because if you're always sort of pussyfooting about it, then, you know, it's like a dog that senses someone's scared, and the dog's like, well, you're not trustworthy. I am now suspicious and worried. You know the way dogs get when somebody's weird about a dog? The dog's then weird about the person.
Dogs are insane, like, vibrators.
Big vibe.
They're perfect for that. And I think dogs would be very sad about Anduin. And then the expansion, they'll be very happy about him, basically.
There you go.
So yeah, that's ultimately, I think, what this is. Because this was written by Metzen, right? A part of this is Christy Golden said to a fan at BlizzCon in a casual conversation that that's why pitbulls go after toddlers. Jesus Christ. Christy Golden said to a fan at BlizzCon that she writes cinematics and in-game cinematics. That's a lot of what she does. She literally actually takes all the ideas, puts them together, puts them on paper. For this one, Metzen was like, sorry, I got this. It was his idea after crafting whatever the rest of the saga or however long ago it took to put this into production. Because obviously they've been working on this for a long time, considering it was hand animated, not mocapped. Jesus Christ, Blizzard. That's insane. But Metzen wrote this, and you can tell he wrote it because it was so dramatic. Thrall was all like a voice from a dream. You're like, nice. The Arthas pose is very much there. And yeah, Dragon Knight. What do you mean it was hand animated? Yeah. They used reference from actors. They didn't mocap it.
That's the thing. A lot of people think, oh, mocap, oh my God, easy fixed. No. Mocap, often, right? See, when you see raw mocap, it looks really fucking bad. Actually, right? There is, a lot of this comes in the animation. A lot of people, like, say, you look at Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog hand animate all their stuff because they know that the performance that is there is for reference, and then their job as artists is to translate that in the form that will work best on screen. In the same way, not in the same way, but you take a theater actor and you just put a real close-up camera to them. And, it's like, a theater actor is acting for someone who is all the way over there. There are differences.
I love theater actors. Every time I watch something and I see someone who's like classically theatrical, I'm like, this is so much better than anything I've ever seen. There was something that was someone's. Yeah, Dragon had said again, I want to see the development of a boy becoming a man. I want the forging of the man. Which obviously sounds a little bit suspect when you use those terms directly. But yeah, that's, I think, the point of what we're going to see. That's I think, what we're going to see. That's clearly the intention. they need to do it right, and they need to and they need to have loads of people kill the shit out of each other, or at least beat the shit out of each other in the next cinematic we see. We definitely need that, 100%.
Yeah.
But the production and execution of this was excellent, and the plan, the vision is clear, and I trust the plan. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So overall, then, I think we've talked our talk about the cinematic. Obviously, Azeroth talks. The thing that's significant there is Azeroth has never talked like that before. She communicated with Magni with like dreams and shit, and that is like essentially the core of things. I read this as not being the cinematic for the War Within. I don't know if they'll try to surprise us with a double, but this felt like the cinematic to start the emotional core of the World Soul Saga. Oh no, the turn tides.
That's not it, but sure. Yeah, no.
Okay.
So check audio.
That's what I think is up. I really liked it. I thought it was artistically great, and it has me certainly caring about those characters more. And I think, as we've seen, right, because like I know a lot of people, they're very critical of like a lot of the superhero movies and sort of a lot of modern movie trends, where often like, the way you can get so much action in a movie that it feels fatiguing, or like, you have action, but you don't care about the characters. I feel like whenever the thunder does come, and I sort of expect and hope it's coming, I would be disappointed if it didn't come, but I do at least have a suspicion that when the thunder comes, it will actually hit a bit more. Because, we will care. I think that's important. So in a way, this is almost rehabilitating the character of Anduin after he was, he was taken an arc that could have been really good if it was told. And it was like told in fragments. But again, this is the thing that I always say. You don't read the Wikipedia of a movie because you watch the movie to know and find out what happened. You go to a movie because you want the experience of the film, the experience of the art, not just knowing what it is and what it is about. And I think that's the challenging thing. We are people who know what Anduin's story is and is about, who have also been able to empathize or, connect emotionally with the cinematic, which is why we like it. But the problem is his story that came before this was just us knowing things, not really us experiencing them much, other than, some strong moments in those Sylvanas Anduin cinematics that were like well written or well placed.